AEW Double or Nothing 2026 is what we're about to review here. Show that happened on May 24, 2026 over there at the Louis Armstrong Stadium in New York City, New York. Listen, what a great show. What an excellent show. I'm putting my notes together. I'm getting everything all assembled, thinking about everything I'm going to say and notes on matches and whatnot. And I'm looking at the general overhaul of it as I'm putting it together, and I'm like, is this one of the greatest pay-per-views of all time? I feel like it's just been like a month or so ago when I was talking about a pay-per-view being like the top-notch, an AEW pay-per-view being like the top-notch in-ring work pay-per-view, in the history of the company. And this one might just have beaten it. This show was awesome. Like it truly was excellent. When you consider, because look, I'm looking at all my notes. I'm putting like I said, and I'm like, okay, this is a show where I have scored nothing. That I have scored nothing under 3.5 stars for those of you who care. And then I have 5 4-star plus matches. Is that right? Did I get that? Did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, that's exactly it. I got 5. I mean, look, I know, and it's kind of, it's kind of preposterous at this point, but I know that AEW pay-per-views can't miss. They're like the surest bet in pro wrestling today, where it's just like, if you want to watch an incredible pro wrestling show, you just buy yourself an AEW pay-per-view, and they proved it again. But every time, it just seems to surpass it. And again, I'm putting my notes together. I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, why? And then it dawns on me where it's just, well, I guess like this happens when you have collected the greatest collection of talent the pro wrestling scene has ever seen. That's what AEW has successfully done. And I used to say, arguably they have done this, but I don't think you can argue that anymore. I don't think it's an argument. I don't think. Look, I would be hard pressed for anyone to come up to me and say, well, no, like from this period to that period, this is the depth of X promotion. This is what it looked like. I don't think you could argue me. I don't think you could argue the opposite. Like to come up to end up with shows like this one, which have just been excellent, from top to bottom or close to, that are not boring, that have been very, very good. I mean, you have to, sure, a part of it is on the booker, but then you have to have the talent to exercise your vision. And this is unquestionably, at this point, I don't even think it's an argument. This is the greatest roster ever assembled under one promotion. Look, I'm open to have my mind changed, but I don't know how you can argue that. My mind is pretty much made up. This is a preposterously talented and exciting roster. Even the people who weren't on the roster had an impact. Look, it was just a spectacular moment, a spectacular show that I am excited to talk about. I've been champing at the bit to do so, and here I am. So might as well get to it. But first, 14,292 tickets were distributed according to WrestleTix. This is according to their most recent update, which was yesterday, Sunday. I'm recording this on Monday. So did they open up more sections last minute, and were they able to stuff a couple of hundred more people in there? I couldn't tell you. I don't know. But this show is an official sellout. It is an official, unquestioned sellout. There is nothing left. And what a crowd. What a fucking crowd this was. Like, this is a crowd that was excited for some professional wrestling. They were into it. Sure, like during the pre-show, they were they gave Mick Foley a good welcome. They were very happy to see Mick Foley, and they were still pretty noisy for like a third of the building full. I mean, it was like maybe 5,000 people, 6,000 people, hanging around there in the building when the pre-show started, and and they were making quite a bit of noise for Mick. And during the pre-show matches, this crowd was just eating everything up. And I was sitting there telling myself, look, you have this crowd, AEW, you have this crowd in the palm of your hand. Like there is nothing right now to win over. You can only lose this crowd. And if you lose this crowd, we're going to have a serious talk. It's like, I was there. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to make this a point on the review tomorrow. Like, I don't want to talk about how AEW lost the crowd. Thankfully, they didn't. They didn't lose the crowd. There were a couple of things that didn't resonate as much, but to any extent, they did not lose the Louis Armstrong Stadium crowd. That New York City crowd was a hot for some AEW action. Look, it could very well be that New York City is AEW country now moving forward. It could be. I mean, they sold out this show and maintained a molten hot crowd for the entirety of the evening. I mean, those are very good signs at the very least. Look, Double or Nothing last year over there in Glendale, Arizona did 8,200 in attendance, there's a whole mess of different factors, if only the size of the population, right? But here's the thing with New Yorkers is that if you got a hot ticket, they're going to go. If you're a hot ticket, they're just going to show up until no one can get into the building. Like that's how they go. It's New York City. This is a city that there's something to do. There's something exciting to do every single night of the week. You can go out and see any kind of show or sporting event or band or whatever, like theater. You could do this. You can do it every night of the week. So it's not as if it's not as if New York City is longing for stuff to do. So if you were able to move out like practically 15,000 people into your building and sell it completely out. So it's ostensibly saying, we could have had a few more people come in here. Then that's very interesting. I don't want to poo-poo on the Glendale attendance last year, but I mean, I think there's nonetheless something more impressive in doing such a great number in New York City. Anyway, enough of that. Of course, it's been established, right, that it's going to be like AEW's second biggest domestic gate behind All In Texas last year in Arlington. This is going to be their second biggest gate. Good for them. That's kind of the stuff you need to hear. This is the kind of stuff you need to hear from AEW, that they're back on track, making big money. Not only getting a bunch of people attending, but making money on top of it. That they're not just papering the buildings. That's ultimately good news. But anyway, to the show itself, and again, if we talk, if we stretch out the audience talk just a little bit here, the Red Hot audience really did feel like it was delivering back something to the wrestlers, and the wrestlers were performing off of that energy. It's an absolute symbiosis that exists between pro wrestlers and the crowds. If the crowds are into it and they're giving the instant feedback, that nourishes pro wrestlers. That's what they're trained to do, is to feed off audience reactions. That's the whole nature of the business. It's also one of the reasons, when I'm listening to pandemic era AEW, which is on the Fast channel on my AEW, which I throw on the TV while waiting for Dynamite to start, let's say on Wednesday nights, and I did it again this weekend before the pre-show. And I'm watching the pandemic era wrestling. I'm like, oh my God, how did we get through this? The empty venues, the guys and the gals doing these great moves to, just to the reaction of about 25 paid extras assembled around the ring, huddled around the ring. You're like, oh my God, this is so rough. There was again, like there's going to be people who are going to try and make claims that pandemic wrestling, wasn't so bad. Oh no, it was pretty good actually. And I will be a staunch defender of the no, maybe outside a couple of exceptions, because there's always a couple of exceptions. But overall, pandemic AEW was rough as hell, and I don't know how that company made it out of that era, especially being so young. It was, I guess, thank God for their media deal that they got, because there was no way that AEW was not no way, but it would have been really difficult, let's put it that way, for AEW to pull out. To pull out somewhere else. Anyway, I'm getting off course here a little bit. The point I'm trying to make is that the live crowd at Double or Nothing absolutely demonstrates the crucial part that it provides in giving energy to the wrestlers. It goes both ways. Don't get me wrong. We've also talked about this in other circumstances where it's like there'll be people who will complain that, oh, what a terrible crowd they had, but the show was very mid. So I'm like, well, the audience is just reacting to some low effort stuff. You're not going to get them up on their feet if you're not doing anything exciting. So it does go both ways, which is why I called it a symbiosis. You see, there's a bit of give and take on that level. Anyway, this was a show mired by excellence. This was a show that just had tremendous professional wrestling, had some great moments, had a little bit of everything for everyone. And so, look, if we get maybe into a little bit of the nuts and bolts here, because I feel like we've been very high level, we need to start drilling down a little bit here. Clean finishes. This was a show that was marked by clean finishes where they mattered. Whether it be MJF winning the title, whether it be Konosuke Takeshita, whether it be Jon Moxley, Will Ospreay, there were so many absolutely like clean finishes, and in a promotion sometimes AEW that doesn't shy away from using shenanigans and nonsense to lead us to the finish of a match, or I should say finish up a match is what I'm trying to say. And this was not the case, at least in a lot of these big matches. This was absolutely not the case. Just letting people win matches, have some statement victories. And this is kind of the AEW I remember as well. This is one of the things that early on demonstrated how different this company was going to be, where it was like, well, we don't have a problem if one of our top guys is losing, or if one of this, or if a guy that we're pushing right now or that is on the cusp is losing. These aren't necessarily problems for us, as long as it tells us an engaging story and provides some meat moving forward for some interesting things. So we have to underscore that I think that's a big through line throughout this pay-per-view. I don't know if it's happenstance or by design. I would like to think it was by design, not just like us getting lucky. But look, it was a really good. That's a really good through line to go with if this is the principle on which you want to build your pay-per-view. And then look, it was an eventful show on top of it being excellent bell to bell. This was an eventful show. Mick Foley showing up, he had been announced, of course, not like it was a surprise, but Mick Foley being there and cutting a tremendous promo on top of that. And the angles, the Kyle Fletcher turn, the Kevin Knight main event angle turn, these are big statements that AEW made. And particularly when it comes to Kevin Knight, I should say, but nevertheless, regardless, eventful, and they were meaningful and they were good. Like even the little smidgy detail of having Eddie Kingston come out to save the baby faces in the pre-show from the Shane Taylor Promotions people. And just having the crowd erupt on that level was a phenomenal thing as well. That was also like a great event, a great moment on the show on top of that. So let's get into the matches. Let's start. I'm going to start with the main event. I'm going to start talking about MJF defeating Darby Allin to become a 3-time AEW World Champion. And hanging on to those luscious, expensive locks of hair that he put on the line, much to his chagrin. Now, I had talked on the preview, specifically on stream a couple of days ago. When we were previewing the show, I mentioned, look, I wasn't so sure anymore that Darby was going to lose and that MJF was going to win. When they put the match stip together, I was like, oh, there's no way Max is letting his hair get shaved, like in no way, shape, or form. And yet, we got to the preview and I was like, no, they did a bunch of stuff, that on preview on stream just a couple of days ago when we were talking about this match here in particular. I started telling that I wasn't so sure that MJF was going to that MJF was going to win. For the longest time, I was completely convinced that it was going to be him, but they set up like just enough little doubt, just enough little elements to make me wonder, okay, is Max crazy enough to do this? This is a guy who loves pro wrestling. I know he does, and I know he has other opportunities out there in the world of entertainment. But as it stands, I'm like, is he crazy enough to do this? Especially considering all the money that he invested in his hair. There were just the fact that it wasn't very clear which one of the two guys, stood tall on the Go Home show. There was the Roosh, the Roosh request to challenge Darby for the world title next week on Dynamite. I was like, just setting up enough crumbs for me to feel a little uneasy, a little uncertain. They really worked hard to make us believe that there was a chance that MJF was going to lose. And I was like at about 60-40 that Darby was going to win. Still, I favored Darby, but those are some, the odds are a lot slimmer. And then we open up the pay-per-view, right? And in the last segment of the pay-per-view, you've got Mick Foley, who cuts an incredible promo, not only dressing down MJF, but then boosting Darby Allin, putting him over. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, he might actually do this. They might actually be setting up Darby for the win. And I would have bought it with everything that they set up. But I will say, like I said on the preview, and as I'm saying right now, I think it's a good time for this Darby run to stop. I think it's going to end at a peak. I think if he had retained, it would have started going down a little bit. We would have gotten diminishing returns on the weekly, and sometimes bi-weekly defenses that Darby was giving. I think we had reached the perfect moment to sort of pull the trigger on this before it started getting annoying or boring. Now we're going to end this Darby run with an excellent memory. This is what I talked about on the review, and I still feel on the preview, I should say. This is the review, Warren. Thank you, Warren. The problem that we often get with professional wrestling is that it doesn't know when to stop. It doesn't exactly know or know to stop when the peak has been hit. More often than not, pro wrestling will stretch something out and will milk it for all it's worth instead of, just giving us the thing at the right moment to create maximum heat, maximum excitement, whatever. And sometimes we miss the mark. That's all there is to it, because pro wrestling sometimes likes to drag things out. They didn't do this with the Darby run. And this will be remembered as a legendary AEW World Championship run. This is going to be a run that will have defined, I should say, further the AEW World title scene in 2026. A title scene that was already unusual as far as world title scenes in North America go, unusual by its unpredictability, by its multiple stories being constructed around it, right? If you recall, at the beginning of the year, you had multiple guys jockeying for the number one contendership for the title. You had Kenny Omega, you had Hangman, you had Andrade, and you had Swerve, to name those. And then you had, and this is, of course, while MJF was champion. And then on the side of that, you had MJF accepting challenges from Bandito, from Brody King, which made for a very exciting and unpredictable world title picture in AEW, something that just never happens in North American pro wrestling, where it's more like, okay, we're going to set this guy up and he's going to have one feud, one guy gunning for him. Whereas since then, and including the Darby run, since then, the world champion feels like he's being attacked by all sides, that no matter where he looks, he's got a challenger. And that's very exciting. That's very fresh. And I'm hoping this is something that they're able to continue to keep going with Max's third reign here, leading us into Wembley Stadium. I understand if they'd like to pull back instead, and just like at some point focus on, whoever the number one whoever's going to be winning the Owen Hart tournament, right? And focus on that person afterwards. But maybe they'll continue having a very dynamic and exciting world title picture, right? And again, I guess to connect to something I was saying at first, you can only achieve this type of dynamic if you have a very fucking deep roster, which continues to push my argument that this is the greatest wrestling roster ever assembled, bar none. So yeah, I don't have a problem with Darby dropping the title. I think it's a good moment to do so. I think he's had a memorable run. I think he's had a definitive run that will have historical impacts moving forward. This is something that people will talk about again. Like in 10 years, when the YouTubers start popping on, the new wrestling fans, and they start revisiting this era of AEW, they're absolutely going to be talking about the great Darby Allin run of 2026, the month-long run, which was awesome. But anyway, in regards to the match, it was excellent. This was just an absolutely phenomenal match, where Darby was just as great as he's been throughout the entire run, and MJF continues to stake the claim on his own legacy. Look, he talked about legacy on Dynamite on the Go Home show when he was on commentary. He talked about legacy and how that's the only thing that matters, how it's important to him. But he may have been slathering it on a little bit because he's the heel and he wants to get over the fact that he only thinks about himself and the vanity and all of this. But I also believe that there's a part of this that is true. I think that Max is indeed working to look, when he says that he wants to be one of the greatest of all time, he wants to be remembered as one of the greatest of all time. This is exactly what these are the moves that are putting that into context. These are the kind of things that he wants to do so that when people reflect upon the career of MJF, they're like, yeah, no, he's absolutely one of the greatest. Look, I mean, along with Darby Allin, he sold out a stadium in New York City. I mean, that's a feather in his cap. And he was also world champion, at the first Wembley show as well, which had a tremendous number. I can't, it was 60,000 plus. Can't quite remember, right? The biggest show the company's ever put on. And he's the guy. He's at the top. But on top of it, on top of the business accolades, he's a great wrestler. And this is something that I've been talking about for such a long fucking time. But as per usual, the older he gets, the more experienced he gets, the more he does in the ring, the more his confidence builds, the bigger the spots he's handed, he's able to churn out just top-notch, excellent stuff. And the people who, look, I can't even imagine being in the shoes of one of these people out there that just instantly hate Maxwell Jacob Friedman. I don't understand how you can do it. I don't understand. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying I don't understand you, in case you're one of those. I don't get it. I cannot relate to you. We have the cliche is to call him a generational talent, but he is. This is a guy who operates under the precept that he loves professional wrestling, that he loves the company that he works for. And I know that he respects a lot of the people that he works for that he works with, I should say, as well. And he's no dummy. He also realizes the depth of talent that surrounds him as well. And he doesn't want to be remembered as, oh yeah, the guy who coasted on being a heel, on being a chicken shit heel, and just, coasting through his matches while Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega and John Moxley and Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page and Konosuke Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher, and the list goes on and on. As all of these people, and Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné, like I said, the list goes on. While they're all having kick-ass, memorable, legendary matches, he doesn't want to be the guy that we all end up saying, yeah, everyone was excellent in AEW, but Max was just a character. He was just a pretty face. No, look at how great this guy works. He's such a smart worker. He gets it. He understands the little things in pro wrestling that make pro wrestling so good, that make make matches have structure and drama in them without having to, have dozens of run-ins and whatnot. He may say as a heel that he doesn't give a shit about the 5-star matches, but I think he cares about the quality of his matches, whether they're 5 stars or not. This is a guy who cares about what his output looks like. And you can only see it here with Darby, as these two went after each other in an extraordinary match. So well put together, so smartly put together. Even from the moment, right, that really dangerous suicide dive, right? Darby, like I always say, puts the suicide in suicide dive when he landed on his, on his fucking neck, folded over because he tripped his toes in the ropes as he was doing the dive. Even there, Max is like, are you okay? Yep. And Max knew, like, okay, we're on to something special here. We gotta use this. And they did. And it was fantastic. Because that's what great pro wrestlers do. They don't wait for the script to come through. They don't stand around waiting for the other guy to do his move so that they can do their move and so on and so forth. They're not. It's a fucking simulated fight. Sure, they'll work through the structure and whatnot, but you need your instincts. There's stuff here that just unlocks, and Max has it. Max is so good, and him winning this match clean, winning this match clean as a sheet. That's a big statement right there as well. Didn't need the ring, the Dynamite Diamond ring. No one ran in. There weren't any hidden items or whatever. There wasn't any chicanery for the finish. Max winning clean here was a statement. That's a statement victory where, you can tie this into Darby. Darby kept saying, or at least commentary. Well, Darby said it too. Darby and commentary would say that Darby is going to keep fighting and defending the title until the wheels fell off. Well, the wheels fell off. That's the story you had to tell, is that the wheels just fucking fell off. They fell off when he did the scaffold spot and then, busted the back of his head open on the floor, right? Because then he gets back into the ring and there's, what was it? He did a scorpion death lock, right? And he just fell back. He couldn't hold it because he was woozy. He was just selling the fact that he had taken this insane bump, some legitimate head trauma, and he was having issues here. The wheels had fallen off. And Max, I guess to a degree, was, said to himself, look, I've got to beat this guy by my own devices. He's dead. He's effectively dead. I've got him. He does the avalanche tombstone, and then for good measure does the side headlock takeover, which is tremendous. It's such a shit heel thing to do, and that ultimately is the most disgusting thing Max did in the match. Not, like I said, not anything else, not using the Dynamite Diamond ring, just beating Darby again in the same way he had beaten him previously, and how Darby had beaten MJF for the title. And he's like, he just came in for some payback. And that's going to stick to their feud, to their story. Look, this Darby Allin MJF rivalry, I think, has gotten so much better with this match. I think that they've sanctified another all-time feud in this company. Something that has history, depth, the matches to back it up, the story bumps, everything that you could want out of a professional wrestling feud. These two guys put it together over all these years. This was phenomenal, folks. Legitimately, this was absolutely phenomenal. And it's going to be, and it's something they can go back to. It's something that at any given moment, AEW could just open up the valves again and just go straight back to Darby MJF, and you'll need so little to set up. Look, I know MJF and the Hangman. I know that's the preferred sicko feud, right? That's the one. And I don't get me wrong, I liked the MJF Hangman story too. But this one here, this Darby MJF stuff, this has been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal for a while, and just an incredible payoff here. And they can continue to build around it because both these guys are still fairly young. There's still more story to tell with MJF and Darby Allin moving forward, and I'm excited for it. That's That's all I really want. And this crowd was into it. This crowd believed that Darby was going to do it. And this is how good they told this story. Because they bought into the fact that MJF was going to get his hair cut, right? Because after the spot, right, the scaffold spot, they're back in the ring, and Darby does a coffin drop as they're back into the ring, covers, but MJF kicks out. Then he does the Scorpion Deathlock, where his body basically gives out. He keels forward. MJF thinks he's got the opening here. He goes for it, but you know, he eventually eats a Scorpion Death drop. Darby kips up. Crowd goes unglued, and then but then MJF gets in control, lands the Avalanche Tombstone, and gets the win with the side headlock takeover. Just awesome stuff. Just awesome stuff. And the Mick Foley segment paid off this match so hard. Now, when was the last time that something happening in the pre-show had impact later on, like in the main event for AEW? Like that actually that's a pretty good fucking strategy that they could use moving forward. That's a pretty interesting strategy where they could have the champion and the challenger just run an angle on the pre-show. Doesn't have to be Mick Foley every time. That's not what I'm saying. But in fact, that would not be successful very, very quickly. But why not do that? You know, everyone keeps saying, "Oh, you do the pre-show to sell pay-per-views. You do the pre-show to sell pay-per-views." Well, I'm sorry, it's not by putting Big Boom AJ on the pay-per-view that I'm sure we're selling more pay-per-views. On the pre-show that we're selling more pay-per-views. I'm pretty sure he hasn't had a single impact on any sales. That way, I feel pretty confident. That's what my gut says. I think my gut's okay on that one. What did Mick Foley say? Do it for the weirdos, win one for the weirdos, or for the weird ones, something like that. Do it for the weirdos. Oh, the weirdos fell a little short tonight, but look, the story of all of this was Darby's wheels fell off. And they did when he jumped off the balcony after doing a bang bang, not the balcony, but the scaffolding, does the bang bang. And he effectively knocks himself out of the match. It's his own fault, but the wheels fell off and Max was able to capitalize. It's good stuff. It's really, really good stuff. And, if anything, this has successfully established Darby as a top guy as well. This has placed him like all the way right up there. You could have Darby Allin go back and challenge for the title at any given moment now, and there wouldn't be a credibility issue. Like, oh yeah, former champion and a great one too. Anyway, 4.5 stars. Like, to me, this was so good. It's one of Max's best matches. Just absolutely incredible stuff. And then there's the post match. MJF is standing aloft over Darby Allin, who's been strapped into a gurney because of all the violence that has incurred, all of the bad stuff that has happened to his body. So he's strapped up on a gurney, and MJF, he's just doing a victor's pose over Darby with the title, and that brings out Kevin Knight, who rushes to chase off Max. I guess he was afraid that MJF was going to attack Darby, but didn't have to worry about people attacking Darby long, because he did a UFO onto the gurney as Darby was being carted away. And we have ourselves a Kevin Knight heel turn, which is fantastic, which is tremendous. And what a fucking great angle too. Just absolutely tremendous. Like I said at the start, all these angles landed. And imagine this. This is your pay-per-view main event angle. Kevin Knight taking out Darby on a gurney. This is what you do to close out the show. This is the last thing you see. Kevin Knight staring despondently, looking down at Darby, who's toppled off the gurney. You get this one shot of Max, who even Max is a little taken aback. He's like, oh, holy shit, what's going on here? Type of things like, ooh, go a little further here. And that's how you end the show. And it's tremendous. Look, we sort of felt this coming, right? Again, like on the Dynamite review last week, or was it the week before, I sort of pointed out, how Kevin Knight was like, hey, you know what? He had this one exchange. He had this one exchange with Speedball. I think it was backstage at some point. And Speedball is congratulating him on being a TNT champion, on becoming the TNT champion. I think this was after his win, shortly after his win. He's congratulating him on winning the TNT championship. And he says, this is just the start for you, Kevin, because for you, you're going to go straight to the top and you're going to be a world champion in this company someday. And Kevin Knight goes, yeah. And you, my bro, it's like, you're awesome. And one day you're going to be a champion as well. And he falls short of calling him a world champion. I'm like, hey, wait a second. Why aren't you boosting Speedball? This is kind of weird, right? And from that moment on, I've been highly suspicious. And I think talking in the second person as well is a bit of an indicator that you might be on the way of a heel turn. Anyway, they decided to do it. There was I think a lot of people expected some kind of heel turn. There's a lot of people who expected it to be Speedball who was going to turn, that the whole team was just going to become a heel tag team. And, that still might happen. The Speedball might just be like, yeah, I'm with you, pal, type of thing. We're going to have to see on Wednesday this week, aren't we? I mean, it's a great way to end the show. It's a fantastic way to end the show. And again, look, this is something once more that we've been talking about so much, that it is the confidence, clear amount of confidence that AEW and Tony Khan have in Kevin Knight, that they're like, yeah, this is a guy that we want to make into a star. And it's been a long time coming. Those of us who watched him, start off, rise to prominence, I should say, in New Japan, could all see that, this guy has a high ceiling. This guy has the talent. He's got the skills. His ceiling was extremely high. This is a guy that everyone said, you got to push him. This is a guy you push. And look at that. It's barely been a year, right? Since Kevin Knight joined the company. And already we're throwing him into a feud with a former world champion, who legitimately just lost his title. A guy who was extremely over and popular with the AEW crowd, and Darby Allin. And we're putting Kevin Knight in a big spot out the gate. That's pretty cool. How could you be upset at the idea of putting over younger talent, fresher talent, people who haven't been on much on television, or who don't come with all the preordained baggage, new people in the mix? That's always been a key component to the success of a pro wrestling organization, is to have young, talented people rise up. I mean, this is as close to a rocket pack as I've seen someone get in a long time in North American pro wrestling. Just excellent stuff. Excellent main event. Excellent angle to finish it off. Let's go all the way back to the start of the show and work our way back up. We're going to start with the pre-show, where the Divine Dominion defeated Viva Van and Zeta Steel in another 5-minute challenge eliminator match for the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship. Zeta Steel and Viva Van, the closest who have come to defeating, or lasting 5 minutes, I should say, with the Divine Dominion. I think there was 15 seconds left on the clock. And look, had I been Van and Steele, I would have just like started stalling, because Zeta Steel at first pointing to the temple, which is still the greatest trope in professional wrestling, wrestlers pointing to their temple to show how smart they are. She started by stalling. That was the first thing she did. She got out and on the floor and was like, yeah. And I'm like, yes, correct. This is what you should do. Just waste as much time as possible. So as they're getting closer there, I would have, start running around the ring. I would have tried to avoid, getting in contact with these large women. That's just me. Anyway, not much to it though. But I'll be damned if I don't love this. If I don't love this angle. I fucking love this angle. The 5-minute challenge. After the match, the Toronto Dominion take out Christopher Daniels, who had been accompanying Zeta Steel and Viva Van, and that drew out TJ making their big return. Ty Conti and Jay, and they hit the ring, and clearly they are going to be next for the 5-minute challenge. And look. Maybe they'll go down the exact path that I had booked, and that I had thought of, except I would have used Hyan and Maya World instead. But I guess TJ is fine. There's a lot of history there. People like the Anna Jay and the Ty Conti, so that's fine too. But yeah, my idea basically being that the next team wins the 5-minute challenge, but loses the title match, and then we go back to the 5-minute challenges to eventually lead us to the Brawling Birds, which I'm assuming will probably, very likely, hopefully be in Wembley Stadium. That would make a lot of sense as well. Next, Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and Wheeler Yuta of the Death Riders defeated the Ops trio of Hook, Katsuyori Shibata, and Anthony Bowens. Good little match. I don't have much to say. Don't have many issues with it. Let's say 3 1/4 star. It's fine. Big reaction for Claudio and Katsuyori Shibata when they got in the ring. I'm telling you, this crowd was into it. They understood what was going on. They were like, fuck yeah, Claudio and Shibata. That made me happy. Also made me sad because, Shibata's state. Imagine years ago. Let's say Claudio stays a free agent or whatever, or works for New Japan, or Look, imagine in their prime, pre brain injury, Shibata. You got these two guys going at it. It's like, kind of makes you go, this is what it could have been. But this was really neat too. Like this was neat as well. And the crowd ate this match up. They ate all of the matches from the pre-show up. So there you go. Then you had the Costco guys and QT Marshall and the conglomeration trio of Mark Briscoe, Orange Cassidy, and Roderick Strong taking on the Shane Taylor Promotions squad of Shane Taylor, Captain Sean Dean, Carly Bravo, Lee Moriarty, and Anthony Ogogo, who I keep forgetting is employed by Tony Khan. This is the kind of stuff that is not for me. It just doesn't. It's not for me. Then there's there's like 100 people in this match because in the conglomeration you've got Harley Cameron who comes out, and I don't even remember who else. And then you got the Vita Coco sponsorship mascot. They got a big mascot, which is just like a big box of Vita Coco, who, from what I understand, we don't have Vita Coco around these parts. But from what I understand, Vita Coco, quite good. From what I understand, it is indeed a good hydration drink, and apparently much more accessible than I drink or Woo Energy. So we're moving up in the world when it comes to drink sponsorships on AEW. Vita Coco, and the Vita Coco mascot was there. I thought the Vita Coco mascot was going to be revealed to be like, I don't know, Chuck Taylor or something, Maybe it was Chuck Taylor. That's the thing. Like, there's a very fair chance, when you think about it for a second, there's a very fair chance that the Vita Coco mascot was indeed Chuck Taylor. Just saying. I'm talking too much about this match. Look, there's nothing wrong with the Costco guy as far as being a worker. I think he's fine. I think he has to stop being a part-timer in this company. It is insane. It makes no sense. It's preposterous. Not that I'm like, oh, there's other guys who work so hard. No. I understand. It's just we don't have to just have him show up for the pay-per-views. How much business has the Costco guy moved for AEW as far as pay-per-view buys and attention? Probably nothing. Very likely nothing. I don't think there's anything you can attribute to success in AEW to the Costco guy, and especially not his kids, or his kid and the other kid who keeps hanging around him, the Rizzler. Because look, these two look. The finish was botched. They were supposed to do like this triple powerbomb, Tower of Doom, type of bullshit move that I really, really don't like. Big Tower of Doom hater right here. And they're setting it all up, and QT's on the top rope, and then the Rizzler and the other kid, the Costco guy Jr., Big Justice, right? Isn't that it? Big Justice. Because the other guy's Big Boom AJ. Right, okay. I see, I'm starting it all out. So the Big Justice and the Rizzler, they hop up on the apron, and they've got boxes of the fucking juice of the Vita Coco, and they squirt it in the eyes of the heels, right? But they squirt it all over the place. Please don't take that out of context. They start spraying everyone. No, again, there's no way to go about explaining what's happening here without creating like clippable content in which I can be taken out of context. They just sprayed the Vita Coco all over the place. They lose control of it. And QT Marshall, who's just on the top rope waiting for his spot, he falls off, but he falls off as Buzz Lightyear would say, with style. He controls his fall, but he lands from all the way to the top rope, to the floor, from the top floor. And he's taken out. You don't see him for the rest of the match. He's not even celebrating with the rest of the crew. So he got injured. He got hurt on a dopey spot in a fucking dumb match. QT probably got himself hurt, which fucking sucks. So if anything, now that it's been established that the Costco guys can be liabilities to professional wrestlers, can we stop bringing them on? Then again, I really don't care all that much. As long as they're relegated to the pre-show, I honestly don't give a shit. But anyway, after the match, the Shane Taylor Promotions people beat up the baby faces, which brings out Eddie Kingston, flanked by Mance Warner. Kingston gets a tremendous pop, and Eddie is so stoked for everything. Like he's just completely out of his mind. He's up on the top rope telling everyone that, he loves everyone. I love you. And good. I mean, that was like the first really big, cool surprise moment of the show. I don't know. What you want me to rate this? I don't know. 3. I mean, the work was solid enough. There were some very good wrestlers in this match. It's just, I can't, it's too much nonsense for me. And then we get Mick Foley's segment, because look, he had started off the pre-show with Renee Paquette. They had done a little spot halfway through the pre-show, and this was to wrap it up, where he's with Renee and he's predicting Darby's going to be winning the main event, and then MJF comes out, no music, nothing. He just walks out and he's going, whoa, hang on a second here. And he comes out, he gets some sports team cheap heat, and talking about the Knicks and the championship drought. Then does something a little more useful. argues that Foley and Darby are cut from the same cloth, underdogs who lose when their backs are up against the wall, right? That's essentially it. And, Foley says, I may not have, I may have lost a lot of matches, but, Max, I've never lost in 2 minutes or whatever, referring to when Darby defeated Max for the title. So Foley puts Darby over. MJF kicks him in the nuts. And then he sets himself up to clock Mick Foley with the Dynamite Diamond Ring. And Darby comes in and makes the save. And then Foley tells a story about the first time he saw Darby wrestle. He was told by John Moxley, says, look, Mick, if you want to stick around, there's this kid here. They were at a Six Flags, he said. There's this kid here, Darby Allin. I'm wrestling him tonight, And he fires an excellent promo, like an absolutely excellent promo. And I am very confident that Mick Foley is going to work out just fine in AEW. Because the one thing that he needed to do was to show to us, the viewing audience, what value does he bring to AEW as a legend, as a guy who is likely not going to wrestle, right? Don't hold me to this, but reasonable minds would agree that Mick Foley is probably not going to wrestle. But then again, pro wrestlers are not known to having reasonable minds. But I digress. The point that I'm trying to make here is that the value that we had to see what the value of Mick Foley in AEW was going to be, and we saw it. Mick can still cut a fire-breathing promo. That was just awesome stuff. And the cool thing is, look, you guys and gals and non-binary pals know I talked about it. I am extremely happy that he's a part of AEW. He is one of the nicest guys in pro wrestling. This is one of the guys where it's like, find someone who has a bad thing to say about Mick Foley type of thing. Genuine guy, heart on his sleeve. So when he's in the ring there and he's talking about how I haven't felt this way in years, and just give me a moment, Max, he's sort of hijacking the promo for a second, saying, look, give me a second here. I want to drink this in because it's been a while since I've done something this fun. That's not exactly what he said. I don't remember verbatim what he said, but that's what he meant. And he told him, he told MJF, like, give me a second here. I got to drink this in. I haven't had an opportunity like this in a long time. Can you imagine how fucking stifled this guy felt being under Vince's thumb? This is a guy who, they tried to give him roles. They tried to have him do commentary and whatnot, but Mick Foley stopped because it was like, I can't stand having Vince McMahon screaming in my ear all the time, right? This was in the 2000s. It's like, I can't stand this. So, he's excited to be there. Like, he's clearly excited to be in AEW and to be in an environment where he can do things that he feels good about, that he feels are that he feels hit that creative nerve. And I think we're all going to be I think we're going to be better off thanks to it. I think we're all going to benefit from Mick Foley joining AEW much more than when Mark Henry joined AEW. and his greatest contribution was convincing Powerhouse Hobbs to leave this place and go to WWE anyway. So there you go. Tremendous segment. Like legitimately tremendous segment. And and the promo where he's lighting a fire under Darby and the rest of the audience who are on location. I'm like, okay, Darby has a solid chance of winning. They sold me over the course of a week to 10 days. They sold me on the idea that Darby Allin just might win this, and they put it over. They put it over with Mick Foley, and despite the fact that when they started teasing this match, I was like, Max is going to win. There's no way he's shaving his turkey hair. There's no way that they're doing this. They still managed to make me believe. All of them. Max, Darby, and punctuated by Mick Foley. All right, moving on to the main card. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage are your new AEW World Tag Team Champions, having defeated FTR for the belts in a wild and woolly match. I guess is how you put it. Look, there are too many things in this match that intrinsically annoy me. There's just too much stuff, like the little monologues, the Beth Phoenix interference. Look, the whole Beth Phoenix thing, okay? The whole Beth Phoenix thing. Adam Copeland going on, talking about, you put your hands on my wife. You put your hands on my wife, and that was a step too far. I'm like, brother, hang on. This has been my stance from the start. It's noble in all of you to have done that. But your wife put herself in harm's way. That's one thing. Second of all, she's a pro wrestler. And when she was wrestling, she was considered like, one of the biggest, toughest, rough and tumble wrestlers. She's not a dainty flower. We're not pile driving Miss Elizabeth here. We're not suplexing Miho Abe here. All right. She's a pro wrestler. This is a thing that I'm like, yeah. Look, I understand the idea that she wants to come in and get her revenge, her pound of flesh. Completely fine with that. And she absolutely should. But the whole thing is like, you touched my wife. You hurt my wife. I mean, if he touched his wife, then he would have legitimate reasons to be upset. He's like, you put your hands on my wife and you harmed her, you hurt her. It's like, I get it. And I understand. I understand it all. But it's just like, Beth is a fucking pro wrestler. She's done this before. She put herself into harm's way. There's a lot of this that's on her too. That's all I'm saying. That's why I'm like, when Beth came out, I was like, all right, sure. Okie dokie. And yeah, I mean, coming back to the match itself, right? There's just a lot of stuff that happens in the match where, I'm not necessarily into it. There's just a little too much. There's a little too much over the top drama, but this was all packaged in a really compelling plunder match. There's too much good stuff that happened here. There's really too much good stuff that happened here for me to just, just hand wave it away and say, no, this was all, too much sports entertainment stuff and the structure and so on and so forth. I really couldn't care. I really couldn't care less about it. No, I enjoyed this quite a bit, actually. I thought it was very, very, very good. I feel like if they had toned down the melodrama at some circumstances in this match, I think that they could have ended up with a really solid, high-level match. But, the run-ins with Beth and, it's fine. But then again, like, they do some cool things, like they do the callback to with the flaming table, the WrestleMania 22 Edge versus Mick Foley match, right? So they're doing the callback to that. The Spike pile driver on commentary was a big bump as well. But like Beth coming around and kicking shit around, and then suddenly the Spike bat is there, and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, it's just the kind of thing where I'm like, I really don't need all of this type of thing, when I talk about the melodrama, it's like when Dax is he's on the microphone and he's talking to Edge, to Adam Copeland, and he says, do you want to wake up tomorrow and see your two daughters or whatever the fuck, right? And it's like, I don't need all of this. Just continue beating the piss out of each other. When I started seeing both guys running around with microphones, I was like, God, just show some self-restraint. The story tells itself. You guys are doing such a good job with all of this plunder, beating the piss out of each other and making it look violent, despite the fact that AEW is not allowed to have their guys and gals bleed on the show. You're doing a fantastic job. Look, it is what it is. End of the match comes around when, like I said, Beth is kicking the steel stairs around, and then underneath is the spike bat, which Cope uses on Dax while he has him in a crossface. Dax says, "I quit," and there you go. 3 3/4 stars. Look, I didn't entirely hate it. I guess my complaints here are just like, I know how I could have liked this match more. I could have liked this match more. And I guess at some point I was like, I'm watching it and I'm like, why are you doing this melodramatic stuff? I don't care. Keep beating each other up. Just keep going after the other guys. It's fine. I don't need all of this. And I guess that's sort of, it was a start, stop type of situation. But look, it was a terrific opener. Got the crowd into it. Everyone was excited. And now Cope and Christian are your new AEW World Tag Team Champions, which they will probably hold on to till Wembley. And they will probably fight the Bucks. There's some talk online that Wembley might end up being something like Cope and Christian versus the Bucks versus FTR in a 3-way match that could be like a TLC match with tables, ladders, and chairs, but they won't call it that, and instead do something else. Now that will make Matt Hardy and Bubba Ray Dudley very, very upset if they do that, because that means that Cope and Christian will have done something that will have done a match that will not be stupid. Konosuke Takeshita, moving on. Konosuke Takeshita defeated Kazuchika Okada to become the new AEW International Champion, and this fucking rocked. This was so good, so excellent, just an absolute fucking barn burner that was a complete throwback to the golden age of New Japan Pro Wrestling. We've got to approach this in 2 ways. We're going to start with the new champion, Konosuke Takeshita. One of the things that I had been lamenting about recently is that this guy has 3 contracts, works for 3 different promotions, and not one of them is pushing him. Now, well, you could argue New Japan did last year, but I'm talking about like recent 2026, right? No one's pushing him. And I'm like, Konosuke Takeshita, you dopes, you fucking ding-dongs. This guy is absolutely one of the best pro wrestlers on earth today. He comes in, puts on his big match suit, and he delivers every single time. Once again, 2 pay-per-views on a row, and he's in one of my favorite matches of the night. We're just continuing the trend that's just going to keep going on and on and on and on. And now it seems, it would appear as if AEW is ready to push him properly, to really go with the full-on push this time. And not unlike Kevin Knight, where they decided to do something with them. It seems that they're doing that with Konosuke Takeshita, who, for all intents and purposes, seems to be gone from the Don Callis family, but you never know. There was the big angle at the end. We'll see how all that works out. But I think this guy is going to benefit tremendously from having a good, sustained, and mostly has to be a strong babyface run. He has to hit this babyface run going and he has to have defenses. He has to have great matches against good opponents. It can't be just like Jay Brones week after week, because Takeshita had a tendency to lose the big matches. That was kind of his thing. And but this time around, like, we're circling back here, and it is going, we're circling back to we're circling back to giving Takeshita some daylight here, and it is fantastic. And because he needs it. I think that the build to this show in general, I thought was so. Like, I wasn't excited for Double or Nothing. Turns out the card was tremendous. But if we're talking about build, right? I never said that the show was going to be bad, but I did say that the build wasn't very good for a lot of the stuff that was happening on the show, particularly Okada and Soup. And I think this has served to cool off Takeshita for a little bit. I don't know what Okada was dealing with his family stuff back in Japan. I hope everything is okay, but that definitely kept the feud from getting a final big boost in the last couple of weeks to really carry the excitement into the match. Now, once the match hit, though, see, the thing is that once these two guys hit the ring, the crowd knew. This New York crowd understood everything that was going on. We're having one of the world's top young prospects. I mean, young, he's over 30 now, but one of the untapped international stars, truly untapped international stars in AEW, against one of the greatest of all time. Well, against arguably the greatest big match wrestler to ever exist in Kazuchika Okada. So, circling back to Takeshita, because that's what I had started talking about. His work is phenomenal and consistent, and he always understands the mission. And he came up, and when he was coming up, he was watching all of these guys like Okada, like Tanahashi, and everyone else in the golden age, Omega and Shibata and Ishii and Naito, and he was looking at all these guys having these extraordinary matches. He wrestles like that. And you know why I can say that with confidence that he wrestles like that? Because he had a block final match, a G1 block final match against Kazuchika Okada. That's how it felt like. Like, you could have this match wrap up Block A in 2017, and it would fit right into place. You'd be like, yes, absolutely. This is exactly how it takes a special kind of talent to do this. And there are guys right now in New Japan Pro Wrestling who do not understand that mission, who do not understand what they have to go out and deliver. They don't get it. But the guy who's got the 3 contracts, who came up through fucking DDT, this is the guy who gets it. This is the guy who understands when it's time to turn on the big match form. And he's wrestling, like I said, probably the greatest big match wrestler of all time, Kazuchika Okada, a guy who in every fucking group chat I'm in always complain and bitch about Okada and how he's used and how he gives minimal effort in AEW, and he's such a pale copy of what he used to be. And then the big match comes around. Now you've got Okada in front of 15 fucking thousand people. He's got a big match on his hands. He was probably told, we got to put this kid over, Kazu. You got to give us a hand here. He dusts himself off. He goes, all right. Flips the switch on, and we get big match Okada for the entirety of this match. And people will then continue to say, oh, well, Okada is a pale copy of what he used to be, and so on and so forth. And I cannot stand this anymore. Look, this is just Kazuchika Okada being a smart professional wrestler. Just a smart professional wrestler. Knowing when it's time to deliver the big match, and when it's not, well, it's like, okay, well, I'll do the match. I'll give you the effort, but this isn't the big match. And the crazy thing about this is that this is not new. This is not something that just suddenly happened in AEW. Kazuchika Okada didn't get big match Kazu every time he went out. No, he would reserve those moments when needed and when deserved at the same time. And that's when he would shine. That's when you'd see like the Rainmaker in all his glory. And that's what we got at Double or Nothing. We got Kazuchika Okada was like, okay, we're turning it on tonight. Tonight, I'm working. Tonight I'm earning my highly paid salary. And Takeshita was happy to oblige. And these two had, folks, a 5-star match. I am so stoked about this match. This has been just excellent. Made me feel stuff. Got me cheering up on my bouncing out of my seat when these guys are doing short arm rainmakers and counter, when Takeshita is countering with rainmakers of his own, the crowd is up on their feet. WarrenHayes is up on his feet, cheering along, slapping his hands together until they're red. And they built this match wonderfully. They did the Bushido fighting spirit, as the commentary kept calling it, I should say. They built to it because it was an intrinsic part of the final as well, where you get the fighting spirit. Takeshita hits his power knee, his power drive knee, whatever they call it, covers Okada, and Okada's out at 1. And there's no bullshit. There's no nonsense. I'm sitting around waiting for Don Callis to do something, for Rocky Romero to jump in. I'm waiting for something to have nothing. We have ourselves a clean win from the champ. The new champ, I should say. Clean as a whistle. Raging fire. 1, 2, 3. No shenanigans. Not protecting Okada and everything, whatever. Clean as a fucking whistle. Like I said at the start. Like the AEW of old. There's it's okay if a top guy loses here, because the top guy's going to be fine, and we need to boost some new guys. And you could do a lot fucking worse than putting your money behind Konosuke Takeshita. You could do a lot fucking worse. This ruled. An excellent match. It's a match of the year candidate in your boy's book. In fact, it's in my book. Takeshita has been so good, so consistent in this company, delivering, over-delivering. Do you remember his match with Jon Moxley last month? I do. He is unquestionably one of my favorite wrestlers on planet Earth right now. I love every part of his work. And then in the ring with one of the greatest of all time, and he hangs with them. And they put on something which is one part nostalgic, one part exciting in the moment. Nostalgic, but not because it's an old time match, not because we're doing all these callbacks, just nostalgic in the feel and the vibe. It's reaching back to something I used to know. Something that New Japan should be. This is something. You know what? I'm Tony Khan. I'm picking up my phone and I'm dialing up President Tanahashi. I probably got him on the speed dial, and I tell him, "Hey brother, this is what your company needs to be doing. This is what your fighting spirit guys who train in the dojo for 11 million years. This is what they should be doing. This is what Shota Umino should be doing." Anyway, on to the post-match angle. Now, during the match, at some point, Don Callis did a lot of excellent storytelling while he was on commentary, where he was talking about how both of these guys are studs, was calling them assets, and he's like, "Look, I want these guys to go after each other, but these are two of my guys. They're two of my biggest assets, and they're very important." So when things get heated between Okada and Takeshita, and things boil to the floor, and Okada wants to do a tombstone pile driver on the floor, Don immediately jumps up, realizing the danger here. And I loved this fact, right? That hey, doing pile drivers on the floor is generally a bad thing. And he brushes off Okada and he says, no, please don't do this. This is not good for business. If both of you guys are out, go back in the ring and win by count out, or wait till he comes back. And Okada obliges. Don Callis gets back on commentary and basically says, look, if I lose a guy who has to go to hospital for months, that's no good for me. That's not good for my business. So I don't want these guys to do it, right? So of course, Takeshita beats the count. They fight a little more in the ring. Shortly thereafter, get back on the floor. Like, I don't quite remember if there was fighting or, look, it doesn't matter. Shortly thereafter, they're back on the floor and Takeshita lands a brain buster on the floor. And Don Callis just like loses it. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, he throws the headset down. He's not able to intercept Takeshita doing the move. He just runs right at him and he starts, he's hot. He's steamed at him. And Takeshita waves him off. He's like, it's fine. Don't worry, Don. It's like, but that turns out would be a very crucial element of things moving forward here, because after the match, the Don Callis and a couple of guys of the Don Callis family are there and they're confronting Takeshita and they're telling him, look, brother, what the fuck are you doing? I didn't want, he's basically telling him, I didn't want you to try and cripple my guy. And Takeshita's like, I didn't know you didn't want me to cripple him. It's like, you didn't tell me not to do it, type of thing. Kyle Fletcher's music hits, big reaction from the crowd. He comes down to the ring to even up the score, stands side by side with Takeshita as the Don Callis guys sort of walk away, and then the Proto Shita guys hug, but it lasts only for a second because Kyle Fletcher turns on Takeshita, beats him up, even cracks the belt across his head. Fantastic angle. And Kyle Fletcher comes off as the most shit heel human in the world. Just an awful, awful, shitty human. And I think it's great. This is the kind of stuff that is so good. And is going to bring, now the follow-up is going to be important. It's going to be very, very crucial moving forward. But this angle was absolutely fantastic and so spot on great. Couldn't have finished, put a punctuation mark any better to a 5-star match than this here. Next, we had the opening salvo of the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament, where Athena defeated Mina Shirakawa. I enjoyed this. I thought this was good. This was a good match. I don't have much really to break down. I thought both the women worked really hard. I thought Mina again continues to sort of like have these performances that are going beyond my expectations. I thought she was pretty good here. And you know what I'm discovering? You know what I'm finding out, chat? You know what I'm finding out? I'm finding out that Athena, that I'm finding out that I prefer Athena in 12 to 15 minute bursts than I do with her overindulgent 30-minute main events in Ring of Honor. I think there's an extreme difference between the two. And I don't think Athena is a big match wrestler in that sense, in the sense that she, let her go 30 and she'll poop out like magic, speaking about Okada, just a few minutes ago. That's not her. But in these punchy little 10 to 15 minute matches where she's just like being dynamic and hitting all of her big moves and transitioning from thing to thing without feeling like she has to devolve into let's be overly creative to sort of pad some time. I think she's very good. I thought she was very good in this match here. I'm surprised that she won because usually Athena does not win the matches and does not win matches in AEW per se. Look, I mean, she gets the old face in and gets the victory. You know, her Super Dragon-esque curb stomp, it rocks. It's very good. You know, there's a rumor going around that I don't like Athena because I'm critical of her and in her matches in Ring of Honor. And the truth is that I like Athena. I think that she just goes overboard in a lot of things. And seeing this match here just confirms to me that, you know, she is better. She's better in these types of matches than she is in her 30-minute overindulgent Ring of Honor main events. That's just how it goes. She's much better in these circumstances here. She was very good, very snug. She's a snug worker. I enjoy that. There's a lot of things I enjoy about Athena. This was very good. And so 3.5 star match here. She advances and she will be facing the winner of Sky Blue and Sari. So we are very likely getting Sari versus Athena. And I'm not going to lie, that's kind of what I hoped, because these are two women who can hit really hard. And I'm very much looking forward to that. Jon Moxley successfully retained the AEW Continental Championship against Kyle O'Reilly in this no time limit match. So the story of this match was Jon Moxley was ready. That's essentially the story that was told here. Is that this time around, unfortunately for Kyle, Jon was ready for everything that he had to that Kyle O'Reilly had to throw at him. That the Death Riders prepped him to be better, ready and better. That the Death Riders prepped him to be better and ready to take on Kyle O'Reilly this time around and not fall for a submission, not, you know, just be at the top of his game. And that's what we got. And I enjoyed this a whole fucking hell of a lot. I still think their Full Gear match, was it a Full Gear? I think their Full Gear match was much better. That one was like, that blew me away. But this was better than the Dynamite one. And regardless, these are all excellent. All of these three matches are excellent. You know, we're kind of splitting hairs, picking which of our children we love the most. You know, this was just more grappling, masterclass in limb work. And the first half is Moxley taking O'Reilly's leg apart, you know, with surgical patience, I guess. And the back half is O'Reilly trying to find a war without his most important weapon, which is his kicks, really. And the crowd just genuinely got behind Kyle O'Reilly. They wanted him to win. They cheered him on. They to the very fucking end, when he's in that ankle lock, after they've traded ankle locks and the crowd was just like on their feet. I'm trying to say too many things at once. Crowd is on their feet because they were trading locks and ankle locks and whatnot. And Moxley gets the last one, and you know he locks it in, and he's standing. And Kyle he's exhausted, like the sweat is pouring off his face, and he's trying to get to the ropes, right? And he's doing everything he can, and the crowd is up on their feet and they're cheering. They're cheering for him to get out of a fucking ankle lock. Do you see here? When I talk about telling stories in a professional wrestling ring, this is the type of story that I mean. Not run-ins, not monologues, not asking other wrestlers if they want to wake up the next morning to see their children. None of that bullshit. All you need is two guys who know exactly what path they want to go down. Talented guys on top of that, and you let them go. And there's the story that you didn't even have to hammer home, that the crowd was able to pick up and understand. That Jon Moxley was picking this dude apart to the very end. That this dude has Jon Moxley's number. Beat him before, almost beat him not that long ago, and now could probably do it again. And they rallied behind him because this submission, this simple ass fucking submission, a fucking standing ankle lock, was the one thing between victory and defeat. And people believed in Kyle O'Reilly and they were like, go brother, you can do this. But Kyle was out of gas. He was just out. He was just completely spent. A perfect story that they told. And great work on top of that. I got to tell you, I don't think, as much as I just put over Konosuke Takeshita, and I told you guys he's one of my favorite wrestlers on earth right now, I don't think there's anyone that I enjoy watching more in pro wrestling than Jon Moxley. Right now, I ran it through my mind after the match last night. I was like, who do I enjoy watching so much? Because he's got all sorts of little things down in the way he presents himself and the way he reacts. Like the Jon Moxley character, the persona, whatever he is, he projects when he wrestles is so nuanced and complete. Like he more than understands who he is. He lives it. He goes, we often hear say, the best gimmicks that a wrestler can get are those that are close to their personality. So I'm sure that this is very close to who the real Jon Moxley is, but there's he still has to make this entertaining. He still has to create bouts of fiction, to make this happen, so that his matches are fun to watch and entertaining. I don't think there's a guy out there. Look, at some point earlier in the match, I don't know exactly when, but not towards the end. Earlier on in the match, O'Reilly has him in an ankle lock, and he's suffering, and he's biting down on his hand, to sort of keep himself from tapping and whatnot. And eventually he does get out, and he goes to the floor, and the camera is up against him as he's sort of kneeling on the floor. And then you see his hand, and his hand is bloodied. He bit through his hand to sell the fact that he was in pain. And I'm like, this fucking maniac absolutely rules. This is how you get me. This is how I get invested in something. Because now I'm like, okay, I buy that this ankle lock is the worst fucking thing ever. I absolutely buy it. Because this guy was drawing his own blood with his teeth to keep himself from tapping to this fucking ankle lock. Mox is so good. And once again, a pox, a hex on all of you out there who last year were clamoring for Jon Moxley to get out of AEW, were saying that he was washed, etc. I'm not going to go through that rant again, but a pox on all of you. Pox rhymes with Mox. But I still can't believe that there were people who wanted this guy a year ago, a little more than a year ago at this point. There were people who were demanding that Jon Moxley hang it up and go back and do a Shield reunion in WWE. And I hope you all feel fucking bad. I hope you feel bad about those thoughts. I really do. I hope they keep you up at night. I hope you watch these types of matches with a little embarrassment. Kind of holding your head like this, semi-covering your eyes with shame at the thought that you were going online saying Jon Moxley is washed and needs to leave. Never bet against Jon Moxley. Never, ever, ever, ever bet against Jon Moxley. Anyway, excellent stuff. 4.25 star match. This incredible stuff. I do want to mention, before we continue, Jim Ross, who was brought out for this match here. I thought that he tonally completely destroyed this match. I thought he was terrible on commentary on this match. Now, look, there's multiple reasons. First of all, not even knowing Kyle O'Reilly's name, calling him kid. And then at some point you realize, right? Because someone jumped in and said, it was Nigel or someone who said, Jim Ross kept calling him kid. And I think it's Nigel at some point jumped in and said, Kyle. Yes, Kyle. Forgot Kyle O'Reilly's name. A guy whose matches he has called in the past. Like, what are we doing here? He's called. He knows who Kyle O'Reilly is. And then at the end, we got a new champ, fellas. No, we don't, Jim. No, we don't. Mox retained. We don't have a new champion. The moments of awkwardness that he created, and he adds nothing. Now, I understand. I want to make something very clear here. This is not, I'm not jumping on this as some, just, all right, we're gonna hate on JR because it's the cool thing to do. Look, I understand, because he talked about it himself. I understand that there are concerns about dementia, right? He's being tested for it. They're keeping an eye on it. He says everything's clear for now, and that's good news. But if you're being tested for it, that means there's signs. That means that your cognitive abilities are starting to erode, whether it be because of dementia or just because age, man. It's like that's something that just happens, right? It doesn't have to be full-blown Alzheimer's. It could just be, you could just be losing parts of your mind. It's just as simple as that. So I understand that this might be related. This might be related. I couldn't tell you. I mean, it's not the first time that Jim Ross has jumped on a call during a pay-per-view and you go, ugh. He adds nothing. He's really bad. But I found he was particularly egregious and detached from what was going on. So I'm not bashing him because I understand that there might be a medical condition attached to that. But as someone who watches pro wrestling, who is a viewer, who doesn't know JR on a personal level, he's not, we're not close, we're not friends, we're not family, we're not related. There's nothing that connects me to JR. There is no reason for me to be listening to this all-time legend of pro wrestling lose his cognitive faculties as I'm watching professional wrestling. I don't want to watch JR's mind degrade as I'm watching a dopey pro wrestling show. Does that make sense? I guess what I'm trying to say here is that maybe it would be a good moment to give him a send-off. Have a Dynamite that pays tribute to Jim Ross before he passes away. Just do one special where all the people close to him show up and you get these special matches. You just have, not unlike the Brody King tribute, but you just celebrate the career of one of the true legends of the sport, a voice of a generation of professional wrestlers, a guy who has occupied some of the most important roles in pro wrestling, and on top of that, give him a proper send-off and say thank you, Jim, and then send him back home. Tell him to kick his feet up, and we've got you covered, pal. We'll take care of we'll take care of the rest. We got you. I don't know. I just don't want JR to become a ghost of himself while I'm watching pro wrestling. I don't want to bear witness to that. And I, as a stranger to him, should not be bear witnessing. And I, as a stranger, should not bear witness to that either. And I, as a stranger, should not bear witness to that either. That is a very, very private thing that should be handled privately. I'm just speculating. I'm not saying necessarily the two are connected. The fact that he's talking about being tested for dementia and the terrible, like objectively terrible performance he had being on the call for the Mox O'Reilly match. I'm not saying those events are related, but there's enough, I guess, probable cause maybe to sit back and think about this a little more and see what you do moving forward. Anyway, let's move on. Will Ospreay defeated Samoa Joe in the opening match of the Owen Hart Foundation's men's tournament. Christ, this ruled. With another excellent match. Outstanding stuff. Legitimate. Like, if you wanted to make this your match of the night, I wouldn't even have a problem with it. I'd pat you on the back and say, good show. Just incredible stuff. Just incredible stuff. And Samoa Joe look, he's fighting Will Ospreay, okay? Will Ospreay, probably the greatest to ever do it at this point, right? He is absolutely one of the greatest, and he just might be the greatest of all time. And he's tapping in to a part of Samoa Joe that we haven't seen in quite a while. And what was great here is that we saw once again just how good Samoa Joe is. You know, everyone would always talk about if only this was 2009 Samoa Joe before this and before that and whatnot. And you're like, well, when in fact, like, this is a guy, you know, who went up to WWE, got called up, right, and got there and quickly realized, it's like, oh, they're not going to do anything with me. And then not only did they not do anything with it, they put him on commentary, and it was like, okay, yeah, you know, this is a guy who was mailing it in for a while now. Then he gets back into an environment where being a good pro wrestler is actually a benefit and not considered, you know, not considered poison. And he becomes one of the most solid performers in AEW, like time after time. No wonder this guy was made world champion. And you look at this match here, you look at him go with Will Ospreay and keep up and create an excellent match and work harder than we have seen Joe work in a long time. And I'm like, fuck yeah. More of this Samoa Joe. More of this. And yeah, and I'm sitting there going, everyone's pulling out their big match, their big match vibes here. One after the other. Everyone's just turning on the switch for the big match feels tonight, and it's tremendous. And what was great is that Joe ran this match like a bruiser, ran this match like he could hurt Will, and that kept everyone on their toes. But Will was ready and Will was into it. Will only has one speed, and it's max speed. That's all he's able to do. So he delivers and delivers and over delivers. I mean, I don't think I have gotten excited so much at the sight of a Styles Clash as I did when Will Ospreay did a Styles Clash on the big, thicker, girthier Samoa Joe. That was one of the greatest sights I had seen in a while. And Joe's just trying to put him away with the Coquina Clutch. And he gets him into the corner, and Will charges him into the corner, and Joe catches him with the big Uranagi and gets the Coquina Clutch back onto him. And this is the great spot where Will is just inches from the ropes, and his eyes, man, the face that he has as he's trying to reach for the ropes, and he's just inches away. And his face, it was incredible shit. But these guys put on an absolute masterclass. Absolute masterclass. And the finish, the muscle buster out of Will escapes, hits the hidden blade, covers Joe. Joe kicks out at one. I'm got my hands on my head. I'm go, holy shit, what am I watching? And then the second hidden blade does the job. But oh my God, this fucking match. It was so extraordinarily good. 4.5 stars for me on this one. Look, it's Will Ospreay. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do with this? He's like I said, probably the greatest of all time at this point, and he brings out the best out of everyone he wrestles. He's just inevitably this is what he does. And then we had the second Owen Hart Foundation men's tournament match where Swerve Strickland defeated Bandito in another excellent match and an excellent quarterfinal, and both guys look great. And look, Bandito I know Bandito is a crowd pleaser. He's a guy who has this incredible connection with the audience, and it's the charisma, it's the charisma, the way he connects with the audience, the mask, it all comes together. People love Bandito. This crowd was alive for Bandito, and Swerve here with him. I thought they had another excellent match, but these two had a truly excellent match, and one where I was wondering how this was going to go. But holy smokes, they had a phenomenal match that really built to an excellent high level final sequence between the two. Just an incredible final sequence that started with the 21 plex, like the deadlift 21 plex, which is the one that Bandito finishes matches with. You'll notice when he does the old version with the guy hanging onto the ropes, that one doesn't work. It's not as effective anymore. But when he does the deadlift one, when the guy is flat on his stomach, that's the one that works and puts the guy away. That's what he uses now to put his opponent away. And he does it. He does the 21 plex, the deadlift one, and starts the cover, but he lets go because of his neck. Swerve had been working the neck throughout the match, and he couldn't hang on to the bridge because his neck gave out. And I thought that was great work from Swerve. That was really that was some good stuff that I didn't necessarily see coming. So I appreciated that. Of course, there's the crazy spots where Swerve Strickland does a house call as he's standing on Bandito's shoulders, which was absolutely batshit crazy. That was one of the craziest things I had ever seen. And then Bandito does a poison rana off the apron right to the floor. I let out a huge howl on that one. Like, Strickland, what the fuck are you doing? You don't have to be killing yourself here. And the finish, this incredible fucking finish where Swerve is hanging onto the ropes to do the usual 21 plex. Bandito goes and he does the little bounce thing, locks in, but at first it looks like it's botched because he's not bouncing back and things look a little awkward. But it's not botched and it's not awkward. It's Swerve that's locking up the arms to land a fucking vertebraker, and a good looking vertebraker at that. And that was such a creative way to end the match. Swerve ends the match with a house call just to punctuate it. But holy shit, this is great stuff. So Swerve moves on. On the preview, I had made my case for Bandito to move forward. I'm fine with Swerve moving forward as well. I just made the case that Bandito going forward would have been more interesting. You could have had Brody versus Bandito in a friendly match that could have been fun, and then get to the finals and you have Bandito and Will Ospreay, and that, at this stage of their careers, that would have been a lot of fun type of thing. Because I think they've fought before in the Best of Super Juniors, and but now they're older, wiser, better. I think that would have been really cool. But I have no issues with Swerve, and it's going to make for the better story down the line as well. It's fine. Look, I'm going to tell you guys and gals and non-binary pals, our boy Bandito. Case Lowe's been talking about it, and I agree with him. I think Bandito is probably going to be main eventing a show in AEW within the next 12 months. The AEW crowds go batshit for this guy. They love Bandito. Like, I like Bandito. I like him. I do. I like him. I like him a lot. Not as much as AEW crowds though. This guy is a natural fucking babyface, and he gets the babyface energy. He's got everything going for him. He's gonna have a title shot. He's gonna be in the main event by May 2027. I think his elevation is coming at that. Next, Tony loves him. The only thing that he has to do, he being Tony, is actually let the guy win and take the meaningless title, get rid of everything that's meaningless, okay, or makes him look meaningless, like the Ring of Honor World Championship that AEW fans don't give a shit about. Start having him win big matches and just, build him slowly but surely as things move on. You can't let him go around doing just like what he's doing right now. Now he has to start winning matches. He has to start feeling important if you're going to make him important. I could be misreading this. I could be absolutely misreading this, but I feel like he's following a lot of typical Tony Khan patterns when it comes to pushing guys, with a lot of losses and whatnot. I think, we might be very close here to Bandito moving forward. Anyway, this was tremendous. I'd give it 4.25 stars. And Ospreay and Swerve move forward in the tournament as they inevitably go on their collision course to fight each other at Forbidden Door in the finals. Tekla retains her AEW Women's World Championship by defeating Hikaru Shida, Jamie Hayter, and Chris Statlander. I always hate taking notes for four-ways. There's so much stuff happening, and a lot of times there's really no rhyme or reason for it. It's because stuff. Look, the high level notes. This was good. I thought this was quite good. Everyone worked really hard, and then there was Hikaru Shida. I like right off, I'll give it a 3.5 stars. I particularly enjoyed the exchanges between Jamie Hayter and Statlander, where to a point where I'm like, hey, you know what? It should be it should just be these two girls moving forward. Why don't we get rid of the three others and just let these two go ahead and wrestle for the rest of the the match? Never mind the two other women. This is a lot of fun. And I mean, it could have been that too. I don't know. But listen, Tekla, don't get me wrong. Tekla is great. Tekla is amazing. Tekla is so good in her role as a heel champion, and she's embraced it, and she's confident, and she has such an energy that no one else in the women's division has. I would even argue in the entire company has. So she's really standing out. She's breaking out, and look, I thought Tekla, Jamie Hayter, and Chris Statlander were all excellent here. And Hikaru Shida, I wondered if can she still land the knee strike? Can her knee strike still connect? Is that possible? Is that a thing that she's still able to do? I don't know. I don't know anymore. I don't know what she does. So there you go. That's the long and short of it. But here's one last thought. Those of you who are usual listeners to the Mr. Warren Hayes show, you know that months ago I was bemoaning the booking of Chris Statlander. I outright said that Chris Statlander was the worst booked wrestler in all of All Elite Wrestling, because none of her booking made sense. She was thrown into things right and left, and there never seemed to be any continuity, and fans wanted to have a reason to cheer for her, but you never knew exactly what she was doing. And then all of a sudden, they put her down the championship lane. She wins the championship, and they're like, okay, now I get it. And then they try her out as world champion and whatnot. She has her reign, and now she loses her title And the first thing that she does is get booked into an angle that doesn't make much sense to me. That makes her look kind of dopey. Hanging around Hikaru Shida, who's been on her back for weeks, who clearly they don't like each other, yet continue to team with each other. Look, this could be a misstep, but are we back once again to Chris Statlander being very poorly booked in AEW? She should not be poorly booked. I don't understand why we try so hard with Chris Statlander. We saw it in her fight with Jamie Hayter at this pay-per-view. Just like, let her get into the ring and let her go after her opponents. Just let her beat the piss out of them. That's all she needs to do. And we're in an environment right now where, arguably the three like top stars of the division are all gone. Not unlike last year when for a while Swerve and Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay were all gone at once at the same time. Tony Storm, Mercedes Moné, and Willow Nightingale are all gone. Mercedes is, I think she'll be landing in sooner than later, but still, like, this is a spot that someone like Chris Statlander, who the audience naturally likes, they could just do something interesting with her. Well, now they broke up the thing with Shida, so there might be a new direction here. They're obviously going to fight each other. I'm not necessarily into watching Chris Statlander fight Hikaru Shida. I don't like Hikaru Shida. I've been telling you people for a long time that she's done, she's washed, she's not interesting, But I know there's a lot of folks who are still married to the idea of Hikaru Shida as opposed to looking at reality and seeing what's happening right before their eyes. But eventually I'm sure you're all going to come around and say, hey, Warren, you were right. I was right months ago. I'm sure you will. So, I'm not necessarily into this feud, this moving on here where, Shida and Statlander are going to go one-on-one. And then Shida's probably going to win the feud because she's going to need some heat. Probably, right? I don't know. It's doing nothing for me. Absolutely jack nothing. So anyway, 3.5 stars for the match. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very good. And the last match to talk about is the Stadium Stampede match. Inside this match, there are 2 dogs. There's one dog which has a lot of in-ring stuff, which is exciting and good. That is getting the crowd up on their feet. Where Shelton Benjamin is doing dives and the Elite and Chris Jericho are doing Hurricane Ranas off the Frankensteiners, actually, in sequence, one after the other, and is just a fantastic good time, And then the other dog has a clown nose on, and you're like, wait, that's not a dog. That's a guy dressed up as a dog. It's a guy in a dog suit. That's not fun. I want a real dog. I mean, look, if you're a longtime listener to the Mr. Warren Hayes show, you probably knew that as you were watching this, you're like, Warren's not going to like this. Warren's not going to like the food fight. Warren's not going to like the bus accident. He's not going to like Luther bringing a gigantic tennis racket to Chris Jericho. And you're right. I hated all of that. I think I was told, Warren, relax, pal. Don't worry. This is just an anarchy in the arena. That's what I was told by some people. They just can't call it anarchy in the arena because then they're in the stadium, so they're going to call it Stadium Stampede. And I didn't say a word. I'm like, oh, okay. We'll see. We're in New York where you can't bleed. You can't fight into the audience. I don't know about that part, but at the very least, no blood. Is this going to be an anarchy in the arena? Oh yeah, they're just calling it the Stadium Stampede because they're in a stadium, and it'd be silly to call it anarchy in the arena if they're not in an arena, if they're in a stadium. So they're just going to call it Stadium Stampede. Like, all right, I'm not going to say a word, and I'm going to step back, and I'm not going to challenge anyone. But, I could, anyone who tried to tell me that this was just an anarchy in the arena with a different name, y'all are welcome to apologize to me. Y'all are welcome to just say, "Oh, Warren, I was wrong. I'm sorry." Once again, Warren, you were right to be wary about what they were going to do here. Your gut was right as usual, Warren. I apologize. That's what I'm expecting. No. There's what is it, like a 3.5 star match? The stuff that happened actually in front of the audience was really cool. And I thought it was fucking exciting. And the crowd thought it was fucking exciting as well. But then when the camera cut to the back, you were losing them. When they were fighting at concessions or in the concourse, right? The audience was not cheering. They weren't going woo, 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 woo. When whatever happened with the Leo Rush happened, and I didn't see the audience going nuts, right? But Toa Leona beating the piss out of people, that got them up on their seats, out of their seats. Doing the triple Samoan drop was really cool, right? Mark Davis pile driving Bobby Lashley through a chair on the floor. That was really awesome. The Elite all doing the Terminator dive, right? Well, it wasn't exactly the Terminator dive, but, doing a dive there. That got the crowd excited. Satnam Singh getting his face shoved into his food. Not that much. Didn't get people all that excited. Mark Davis finding a golf cart with a knife and a note, right? The knife speared through the note saying, "Well, hello, asshole." No, that didn't generate big reactions. But Kenny Omega putting Andrade through with the one-winged angel through a table, yeah, that got the people alive. Lion Salt by Jericho at the end got a big pop. This match went 30 minutes, and I could not wait for it to end. I was so looking forward for this to be done. But like I said, like the stuff that was happening in the ring or at ringside was really exciting and really good. I thought everyone worked hard. The backstage stuff can all go kick rocks. I could go fly a kite. Go take a long walk off a short pier. I was going to say, take a short walk off a long pier. That would defeat the purpose. So the longer the walk, the better. The longer the walk on the shortest pier. Luchasaurus in a fucking wig. Come on now. Look, if you enjoyed this, all the more power to you. It's often like I say, it's like there's nothing that I can say that will convince you otherwise. My job is not to convince you that you're wrong for liking this. That's not, and besides, I don't want to necessarily do that, but I can make you understand why I didn't like this and why I think most of this match was a waste of time. Like at the very least, I thought the Young Bucks were going to jump off the scaffolding, which they didn't because they left that for Darby. But everything that was happening in the back with the cameras following people around as they were getting into all sorts of wild shenanigans, that didn't translate well to the live crowd. And everyone has to be able to acquiesce that. The live crowd was definitely not as into the stuff that was happening in the ring, which was really cool and awesome. Like everyone worked hard in this match. And then you went backstage for a rest. You getting tennis balls shot at you. I think the idea was that they had the tennis balls with Jericho and Ricochet. The idea, I think, was that the tennis ball machine was supposed to start shooting them out, but it didn't shoot them out fast enough. So Jericho just started tossing some of the balls, just taking them out of the machine and throwing them. It's like, oh my God. All right. Look, I didn't hate it. I could have liked it more. And I think the stuff that I did like was good enough and exciting enough and party time enough for me to give it 3.5 stars, but it could have been a lot worse. Just keep that in mind. It could have been a lot worse. So there you go. That is, and then it's the main event. So there we go. We went through everything. That's the show. That is AEW Double or Nothing 2026. An excellent AEW pay-per-view. Could just very well be one of the best pay-per-views AEW has ever put on. I had a blast watching the show. And here's the thing. One last thing. A breeze to watch. That show flew by. It flew. It was a usual like 11 match AEW pay-per-view or whatever. It finished at midnight, past midnight here, Eastern time, per usual. But this one just flew by because the work was excellent. That's why. There you go. Those are my thoughts.